It's another edition of Social Distancing at the Chamber, a segment we call Happy Hour with Hammer. My name is Garrick Taylor. We're joined by the CEO of the Arizona Chamber, Glenn Hammer. Glenn, special guest tonight, a two-timer.
You know, I thought that the senator was a repeat guest. I wasn't positive because time has no meaning anymore, but we're thrilled to have the senator back with us. Senator
Sean Bowie from LD18, West Chandler, South Tempe, Ahwatukee, a little bit of Mesa. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's great to be a repeat guest here on the Happy Hour with Hammer.
Glenn, on last night's show, we talked about the fact that the Chamber has rolled out its 2020 legislative endorsements. Why don't you share with our audience the honor we bestowed on our special guest tonight?
Well, I want to first say that we appreciate you returning, but this has nothing to do with your endorsement or your spirit of bipartisanship. It's completely calculated. You drew big ratings, so that's what we're all about here. But you know, Senator, in all seriousness, I mean, you really have distinguished yourself for working across the aisle and being someone who just is solution oriented. And when I think about how this session transpired and really the last significant action with the budget, the bipartisan budget that brought people together in this COVID-19 period, I just want to thank you because you really set a tone that, in my opinion, helped facilitate some really good work getting done. So thank you, Senator.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, and certainly appreciate the support. You know, you guys know me. I'm a person that's very focused on results and trying to get things done, and oftentimes that means working with both sides and working with the business community and really just representing my district. I think my district is looking for someone who has that approach, and I have a record of doing that for the last 4 years. So certainly appreciate the support.
Well, appreciate having you on here to not only talk about your legislative record, but we want to thank you for everything that you've done on behalf of employers. Senator, your district is unique in that you have, like any district, you have businesses large and small, but you have some very large, iconic businesses in your district. Intel, Honeywell, Coca-Cola, they come to you with some unique needs.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, there is a good mix of large and small employers, but you know, we're very fortunate to have Intel, over 5,000 employees here in Chandler, Honeywell, another over 2,000. You mentioned Coca-Cola, PayPal, Rogers, a lot of manufacturing companies. So we do work with them quite a bit, and obviously Arizona is a good place to do business. We've passed legislation over the years to help them continue to do that, to continue to invest in Arizona and invest in the East Valley. And I think we've done a good job of that over the last couple of years. So certainly hoping to continue that work here if I'm reelected in November.
Absolutely. The last time you were on the show, we talked a little bit about what it would be like to campaign during the pandemic. We didn't realize that we would have you back on. Here we are at the end of June, and you're in the thick of it now. Can you share with Glenn and me and with our viewers what it's like for a shoe leather candidate like you, a retail politician? You're typically out shaking hands and kissing babies. So what do you do now?
Yeah, it's definitely not good to shake hands and kiss babies right now. Yeah, you know me, I like to knock on doors, and every 2 years I lose a ton of weight, and I knock on 10, 15,000 doors, and we can't do that right now. And I've been really itching to get back out there, and I really want to be knocking on doors and talking to people and telling them about the work that I'm doing and asking them how I can help. But obviously COVID-19 has changed all of that. So we're having to be a little creative in terms of how we get our word out. We're doing a lot more phone calls. So we're having volunteers and candidates make phone calls. Really not the same experience as knocking on someone's door. I much prefer to knock on someone's door because I think it's a much warmer conversation if it's in person than it is over the phone. So we're doing things like that. We're putting up street signs. That's something we can do. We're doing a lot of digital ads, and we're starting to get all of that rolling. A lot of social media. We can get our word out there and let people know, who's supporting us and fighting for and what we're advocating for. It's definitely changed things. I hope as we continue throughout the summer, we can do things like lit drops where we can leave literature at people's doors. We're not actually having any contact. We'd still be wearing masks, probably wearing gloves. So we certainly hope to do that here over the next couple of months, but it has definitely changed things. I think people are spending a lot more time at home, so that changes how we get our word out and how we get our message out to voters.
Yeah, I know that it's important to you, and you've had to adjust. Glenn, you're an old campaign hand. Retail politicking these days is a little different, isn't it?
Yeah, some people. I'm in a different district, but some people have started to leave literature, so they've started to do that. And I'll just say, it's right now. You need to be careful, and we're one of the things I wanted to ask the senator is, we've seen the cases spike, and you're one of the types of legislators that you're able to speak to people on both sides of the aisle. What do we need to do as businesses and citizens to help get the numbers down?
Well, it's like you said, it's being careful. And I've been to businesses in my district here over the last couple of weeks since folks have reopened, and you can definitely see a difference. Some are taking it very seriously. A lot of restaurants that I've been to are taking it very seriously, but then you see others that aren't, and they're not really enforcing mask requirements. It's not a requirement countywide, not just in individual cities. Maintaining the distancing. I go to the supermarket, or I go to Target, and they do a great job of having markers on the floor and making sure that people are stationed at least 6 feet away from one another. So I think that's really important. I think as elected officials, it's really important for us to share information about the virus. I usually share something at least once a day talking about, here are the case numbers. Every week I share case numbers by zip code in my district and remind people, be careful, make sure you're wearing a mask, make sure you're social distancing, wash your hands regularly. So I think information, I think enforcement, those two things are really important because this isn't going away anytime soon. Arizona has received a lot of national attention. Our case numbers continue to go up every day. We just set a new record today. The previous record was Friday. So we definitely need to be more vigilant about this. We can still have businesses open, but we also need to make sure that we're enforcing the guidelines that are in place so we're able to keep people safe and we don't have to resort to more extreme measures if this virus gets worse here over the next couple of months.
I'm just curious, do constituents ever contact you about testing or any things like that? What would be a normal, if someone's contacting you about anything COVID-19 related, what would the topics generally be?
I've heard some reports that it's hard to get a test. I think we've seen that more in other parts of the valley. CVS thankfully has several locations in LD18 where they have testing that's available, but it's long wait times for those tests as more people are. I mean, it's a good thing that more people are getting tested because we can find more people who have the virus, but we need to expand the number of locations, expand the number of tests. Anytime you have case numbers go up, like you've had here in Arizona over the last week or two, it's really critically important that we increase the number of testing that's available to everybody in rural areas and in parts of the state that maybe don't have tests right now. That's all critically important. So I know the governor's working on that. I know our congressional delegation is working on that, but that's something that's really critically important here over the next couple of weeks.
Have you noticed a willingness when you're visiting establishments around the district, a willingness to wear masks or take other cautions, or are they doing it begrudgingly?
It's gotten a lot better. I've been kind of monitoring it since March. I mean, it's been 3 months that we've been in this crisis. I've definitely noticed a change in the last week or so. Now it's 80 to 90% of people are wearing masks, whereas before it was maybe half. You'd be lucky if it was half of people. So I think people are seeing now and in the data and in the news that this is a really critical problem. And as more people know someone who has tested positive, a family member, a neighbor, a coworker, they know that, we're all in this together, and the only way we're going to beat this is if we work together and wear a mask and keep our distance and maybe limit our number of interactions that we're having with neighbors or friends or coworkers. So thankfully I've seen the numbers increase, which I think is a good sign.
Good. Well, Senator, we've got a line on masks from we've got an inside source. We'll make sure we get you an Arizona flag branded mask for you to wear next time you're on the show.
I've been told it's being sent to the Capitol, so the next time I'm at the Capitol, I'm excited to get it.
Okay. All right.
It's stylish.
If any ethics watchdogs are watching this is of a nominal value. It's just sending a public health message is what we're doing here.
Right.
If there is a special session at some point at the Capitol, Senator, your thoughts on components that should be in any sort of call? What should the legislature be focused on if they do return?
Well, the conversation around special sessions has been really fascinating because a month ago, everyone thought it was going to happen soon. We were going to have several special sessions. We'd be there all summer. Whereas now the outlook is we may not have special sessions at all, or if we do, it's going to be quite a while, maybe August at the earliest, that we have a special session. I met with the governor a couple weeks ago. There was a group of us legislators that met with him to talk about some of the things we'd like to see in special sessions, some of the issues that were important to us, and some of the things that I brought up. COVID is obviously the number one priority, and there are a lot of facets of that, of things that we can do to be helpful. Back in March, that bipartisan budget that you mentioned earlier, one of the things that we're able to do is allocate $50 million dedicated to COVID relief. It would be up to the governor how those dollars were spent, but generally they had to be used for things like food banks, for rental assistance, things in that vein. Unfortunately, less than 30% of those dollars have been used so far. So I'd really like us to use more of that right now when it's really needed, and using CARES Act dollars from the federal government to really focus on some of these issues as well. So using that fund would be an important thing for me. I think unemployment benefits is a really big one as well. The $600 a week federal benefit is set to expire at the end of July. I have no idea if Congress is going to extend that. And here in Arizona, normally we have one of the lower unemployment benefit rates in the country. It's $240 a week. It's the second lowest in the country. We should be having a conversation about, should we increase that temporarily here over the next couple of months? Our unemployment rate, I think, is still around 10%, which I think was higher than it was during the Great Recession. So we have a lot of Arizonans who are out of work and do need the help. So I would absolutely want to focus on that. In a special session, eviction assistance, the governor signed an executive order around protections for eviction assistance that expired at the end of July. My colleagues and I sent a letter to the governor yesterday to possibly extend that another 6 months, because we still have a lot of folks who are struggling. So we'd like to see a conversation about that. K-12 is another thing that we need to look at. A lot of our school districts are talking about reopening and how they're going to do that. And a lot of our districts are embracing digital learning, and they need some clarity and some guidance in statute, or at least through an executive order, to ensure that they receive the funding from the state for those students, even if they're not on campus. And then the last thing I'll mention is small business relief. We've talked about this on the show when I was on last. Additional protections for our small businesses. I hear from a lot of small business owners in my district. I'll give you one example. I have folks who work in the wedding industry, and they have a lot of folks who want to have weddings in the fall or this summer, but they don't have a lot of guidelines or clarity about what they're allowed to do in terms of crowd size, in terms of vendors and food and photographers and all the people they have to work with. So seeking a little more clarity and guidance over what our businesses in the wedding industry and the travel industry are allowed to do and not allowed to do. So I think all of those things, I think, would keep us very busy in a special session. But those are the topics that I'm hearing about from my constituents, and that I think we need to focus on here in the next couple of months.
Senator, could I also ask on the issue, as you know, for a lot of the business groups, including the chamber, we've been pushing liability reform. We understand gross negligence and recklessness, and those companies, we're not looking to protect the bad actors. But as when you mentioned the guideposts, I think we're all trying to get the best possible protocols up there, but the liability reform remains a big issue for us on the federal and state level. We understand it's not the only issue, obviously, but.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot to bring that up. That's something that took up a lot of our conversation with the governor 2 weeks ago, was the need for that, and protections not only for businesses, for small businesses, which are really important, but also protections for workers as well. So workers feel safe in their environments as well. So I think that's going to be a key issue that we talk about and debate when we go into a special session. I'm hopeful we'll have bipartisan support for that. I think there's a lot of us on the Democratic side as well that have talked to our small business owners. We understand that it's important, and we want to potentially support something on business liability. We want to make sure those worker protections are in there as well, but we want to make sure that our small business owners aren't afraid of being sued when a lot of them are following the guidelines and they're being really careful. Sometimes, that something might come up, it wasn't their fault, but they're afraid of being sued. So we absolutely want to make sure that's a priority in a special session as well.
Thank you.
Makes sense. Senator, you talked about hearing from schools, preparing to go back. You alluded to this, that a number of students will be starting the school year in a virtual setting, some sort of online setting, and a hybrid model of on-campus versus off-campus could be the norm for the next little while for some students. Did I hear you right that you just want to make sure that if a school is delivering education in an online setting, that student is still counted as attending the school?
Yes, and what our school district are doing right now is they're having board meetings, and they're kind of unveiling their plans for how they're going to reopen. And a lot of the districts in my neck of the woods, including Kyrene, my alma mater school district, so I'll give them a shout out. They came out with a plan that got a lot of attention that had 3 different approaches. One was in person, 100% in person, one was 100% online, the other was kind of a blended approach. Maybe parents can have their kids start online, and then as they were more comfortable with the coronavirus and hopefully the case numbers go down, then they can go to in person. Well, as you know, we have things in statute about 100 days, and students have to be on campus 100 days before they get their funding. So for a district like Kyrene, who's going to be drawing in kids, I think, from all over the state, I mean, you can go to a Kyrene school online from anywhere in the state. They want to make sure that the funding that comes from the state, that is going to the school district. And because we use current year funding and not prior year funding, we used to have prior year funding for K-12 where you would use the prior year's enrollment to determine the dollars that you were getting. So it was a lot easier for school districts to do their budgets ahead of time. Our school districts now did their budgets in February and March. And obviously a lot has changed, and districts are worried that their enrollment is going to drop 10, 15, 20%. And they have all these teachers and all these support staff that they might have to lay off because they're not getting their funding from the state because those students aren't coming to their schools. So that's something we'd like to do in a special session, but I hear the governor is working on an executive order for that here possibly this week. So that's a really important priority, that our schools have that clarity, and school districts are doing different things. I mean, you compare Kyrene to like Tempe Union. Kyrene feeds in Tempe Union, and Tempe Union is doing a completely different approach, where right now it's only going to be 1 day a week in person, which I don't agree with, but that's something that the school board has decided. So each school district, I love local control. You know me, I'm a local control guy. And the great thing about local control is each school district is allowed to incorporate the policies that best fit the communities they represent. So school districts are making those decisions now. And my hope is at the state level, we can get something either through an executive order or through statute that gives them that clarity so they're receiving those dollars.
Interesting. Glenn, this is reminiscent of the conversation you and I had with our superintendent that we posted the other night, that flexibility is going to be the name of the game here, isn't it? There's going to be all sorts of different scenarios.
Yeah, Garrick, that's exactly right. And communities are going to do different things that best meet the needs. And when it comes to schooling, that's even probably more pronounced. So that's the world we live in right now.
Yeah. Senator, I will tell you, as a Tempe Union High School parent, we are getting ready for the days of 1 day a week and the rest online. This is going to be unusual. Temporary, but unusual.
Just like Garrick's beard, temporary but unusual.
Temporary, that's exactly right. Well played. Well, we hope to see you back at the Capitol. A couple of weeks ago, if you were to ask Glenn and me and our colleagues, would there be a special session sooner rather than later? We probably would have said sooner, but here we are. You've heard the budget projections from JLBC. They're not great, but you thought just a couple of weeks ago they were going to be worse. So we're looking for sort of rays of sunshine here. I know you discussed the chances of a special session. Do you want to handicap those chances? Will we see you back sometime, I don't know, August?
I would say early August at the earliest. The primary is August 4th, and that seems to be the date that people throw out as well after the primary. July, a lot of people are out of town, and the longer we wait, it's good from a sense of we have more data about the economic activity, the revenue collections. Like you said, back in April, it was looking really dire. 90% of our state revenue is either our sales tax or our state income tax. And those are the two revenue sources that really drop in a downturn because people are losing their jobs, people aren't buying as many things. So the hope is that if the economy is able to improve and those revenue numbers are going up, JLBC just said the other day that, we're probably not going to have to do anything immediate because we have a rainy day fund. We can always borrow over a short period of time. We could use CARES Act funding to kind of bridge the gap. So we're having a JLBC meeting tomorrow, so we'll talk about that then. But if we do wait till August, we do have that additional clarity around the revenue numbers. And then obviously we'll want to focus on K-12 and all the COVID topics that I brought up earlier.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Really appreciate you taking the time to visit with us today, and we want to congratulate you on your endorsement. We love working with you and look forward to doing so in the next session, regular or special. So Glenn, you want to take us home?
Thank you, Senator, for being on the show, and you're welcome anytime. Thank you. Be safe out there.
My pleasure. Would love to be a 3-time guest in one of these days.
Hey, it'll happen.
Don't get greedy.
True.
All right. Thanks, Senator.